Good evening, everybody. Tokyo Drew 85 here, and I'm going to do a top 5 worst Castlevania games. Now, to kind of preface this list in the start, they're not necessarily bad games, but in comparison to all the other ones in the series, they're definitely the weakest links in the chain. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. In the number 5 spot, we have Castlevania 64. The biggest problem with this game, or the most glaring issue with the game, is the camera. The camera is never where you want it to be. You always want it to be behind you while you're platforming, and it just makes the game extremely difficult. In addition to trying, another really hard thing to do in this game is grab ledges. Like, try and grab a ledge in that game, and it's like almost impossible. Like, there's a lot of segments in the beginning of the game where you have to just work your way up and climb ledges. The way the controls work in the camera, it just makes it impossible. And overall, just the structure of the game, it is level based, so it has some exploration in it, but it's mostly level based. And also, a really annoying thing about the game is too, there's just some levels that have no music. Now, Castlevania, a series known for great music, just has levels in this game that have absolutely no music. It's like so weird, and it's always one thing that very much irked me about it. And also the whole stage 5 of the castle center, that whole level is just kind of archaic and annoying, and you can get lost in the level. Well, not lost, but you can get stuck in the level and not know what to do for a while. And also the sequel game that came out after it, Curse of Darkness, kind of defeats the purpose of that game, because it pretty much has both the character campaigns plus 2 new characters, Henry and Cornell. So the release of that game kind of makes the first release irrelevant. In the number 4 spot, we have Castlevania Harmony of Dissonance. And my biggest overall issue with this game is that it has no identity. Like, it tries to be like Castlevania Symphony of the Night, with Juice Belmont looking remarkably similar to Alucard. It's got very floaty controls, a lot of the colors are washed out, and the game to me just doesn't have any identity. Like, it really tries hard to be like a portable Symphony of the Night. It has 2 castles, it has, like I said, the similar looking character to Alucard. And again, it's got very floaty controls. The sprite has this annoying blue outline on it. I mean, I heard originally when the game was out, they put the outline on there because they thought Circle of the Moon was too dark. So they brightened up the game a lot, but I feel like they went a little overboard with that. Just the controls and overall aesthetic. Like I said, the game has no identity. Circle of the Moon that came before it may not look as good, but it definitely has a ton more personality because it tries to do more things, especially also Aria of Sorrow, the sequel game, doing the same thing. In the number 3 spot, we have Castlevania Adventure for Game Boy. Now, I understand it was like the first portable Castlevania, but the game runs at a snail's pace. You're just chugging along, and this is one of the Game Boy games where you have whip upgrades, but you could actually lose them if you get hit by any enemy in this game. The sequel cleans that up where it's only specific enemies. This game, you get hit by any enemy, you lose your whip upgrade. It doesn't matter if it's a bat or a demon, you get hit, you lose the whip upgrade. And the game's already not an easy game as it is. And the game just is super slow. And then there's not a lot of detail. Like, stage 1 is fine, but when you get to stage 2 and 3, there's just not a lot of detail. You're looking at a lot of blank backgrounds for the most part with nothing much going on. It's kind of boring to look at. And it is on the short side, it's 4 stages. Again, it's a portable game, but it just doesn't do a whole lot as a portable game. In the number 2 spot, we have Castlevania Mirror of Fate. This game is tough because it looks the part, it has great graphics and sound, but it tries to do this hybrid where it has some exploration. It's level based, but it has some exploration, but I feel like it tries to do both and it also fails at both. The game plays fine, but like the combo, like the 2D system with the combat and the 2D kind of is clunky, because Lords of Shadows and Lords of Shadows 2 are both 3D Castlevanias, and Castlevania Mirror of Fate is a 2D game, and I feel like the combat in 2D is kind of on the clunky side. And again, the game doesn't the music is just bland, like the environments are bland. And that's also in that game has kind of its own timeline where you find out that Trevor is really Alucard in that timeline, because he gets, if he fights Dracula, gets defeated and becomes Alucard when he gets bitten. And again, I mean, that whole series in itself deserves a video because it's kind of a revamp of Castlevania. Learning that obviously was, learning that story tidbit actually, I didn't like that too much, and overall the game was just not a great game in the series. And in the number 1 spot is Castlevania Legends. And I think a lot of people dunk on this game, but it's well deserved. I mean, my biggest overall complaint with this game, I mean, it plays fine, but you have such a short whip. Like, I don't understand. Like, the fully upgraded whip is like 20 pixels long. Like, it's such a small whip, which, I mean, the combat's not unbalanced, but I just don't understand why this whip has to be so damn tiny. And the levels they're long, which normally wouldn't be an issue, but they're long and boring. There's like nothing much going on in the backgrounds. The music, with the exception of the first level, is forgettable. And one really irritating thing is you'll find sub-weapons, but in that game, the sub-weapons are collectibles, and you find one in each level to get the best ending, whereas your actual items that you use are kind of the souls when you beat the bosses. It just, I don't know, to me it doesn't work. Like, I get teased with sub-weapons I can't have. I have this really tiny whip, and then she also has this burning mode where you could pretty much just press A and B and you could just use it to cheese any boss fight. So it kind of like imbalances the boss fights more in your favor. As long as you get to a boss and you use burning mode, you're gonna win, almost guaranteed. And the boss fight with Dracula was very underwhelming. It's funny because Alucard makes an appearance in the game, because I guess they were trying to tie him into the lore, because Sonya Belmont was supposed to be the first Belmont before Koji Igarashi in his cowboy hat actually retconned that whole game. Like, he didn't like it so much he pulled it out of the timeline, which I thought was actually kind of funny. Well, anyway guys, that is my top 5 worst Castlevania games. I hope you guys like and subscribe, and have a good night. Thank you.